Hey there, comic book fans. I was just writing something on somebody's YouTube channel about UPCs and the difference between newsstand and direct editions. And I realized I don't know how much of this information is out there, but I wanted to tell people a little bit something about UPCs and the various editions of comics from especially back in the 70s. So I figured I'd give a few examples of things, such as this is your average newsstand edition Marvel comic from see right there, there's usually a copyright date in the corner box. It's copyright 1977 Marvel Comics. And I think that usually coincided with when the book actually came out rather than its month. So you can look at the covers and see what year it came out very quickly. And then there's your UPC, your Universal Price Code. You can see the number 6 there. That's for June, because it's a June issue. That's how those used to match up. But one of the interesting things is up here. This little CC right here, that stands for Curtis Distribution and Curtis Code. And if you look over here, 02457, that's the Amazing Spider-Man Curtis Code number. So that Curtis was Marvel's newsstand distributor. So they gave all the comic books numbers to keep track of them in their books. So the whole Amazing Spider-Man series, as when it was being distributed by Curtis, all have this number on the cover, 02457. So that's your first example, 1977. Your basic newsstand comic. Now we're going to go with a variation here. Once again, 1977, Marvel Comics Group. And you can still see the UPC 7, which meant it's July, and it's, issue 169 and issue 170. But you can see on here there's no month, there's no Curtis Code number, and there's no Curtis Code logo. That's because this one came out of a Whitman 3-pack. Now, if you don't know what a Whitman 3-pack is, it used to be another way comics were distributed in the late 70s. This is before the age of comic shops. I think there was some comic shop distribution just being started in the late 70s. But there was a company called Whitman that distributed comics through department stores. And I remember I used to get the 3-packs from when we went on vacation up to Lake Placid, New York. There was a department store called Ames that we used to go to, when we wanted to get out of the campsite and go into town when I was a kid. And I used to go and look through the 3-packs and get the ones I wanted. And this was one of them. But since it was a different distribution method, they didn't have Curtis, it wasn't being distributed by Curtis, so they took Curtis's information off there. And they didn't actually need this UPC either, which comes into play a little later, because their UPC, their Universal Price Code, was on the bag that the 3 comics came in. So, and you can see here these, that's also why, if you look at the corner box up here where the price and month is, they're always in black. There's never a color up there to make it easier to change at the printers. Because these aren't considered reprints or anything, because they came off of the presses at the same time as these ones did. All they did was they went into the black printing plate of the cover and they changed right there. That's the only thing that's changed between this and another 170 that was on the newsstand, is this one corner here. Otherwise, everything else is exactly the same. There's no notation that it's a Whitman variant or anything like that. You can only tell by this up here. Now, I think on the DC ones, they actually put a Whitman logo up there. I don't know what years they came out. But on the Marvel ones, there was never a Whitman logo. There was just this diamond where they got rid of all the Curtis code information. Now this is interesting because I have one of each in this case of Spider-Man 200. I must have bought this one off the newsstands and then found this one in a 3-pack later on, I'm guessing. And you can see same price, 75 cents, even though this one in the 3-pack was a different, the cover price didn't matter. Issue number 200 in January of, was that 79? 1979. Curtis code information on the newsstand one, Curtis code number, none of that here. And by this time, I remember this happening. They put a black line through the UPC. I'm not quite sure why they made that decision. But I can remember going into the store in 1979 and getting I have two of the. I must have got, here is a $1.99 out of a 3-pack. Like I said, I just must have bought these. I'm not even quite sure why I would buy 200 again. It must have just been an extra issue in the 3-pack. But I can remember being confused as a kid as to why there was a bar through the UPC now. So there's actually two types of Whitman variants. There's the ones with the bar, and then they also moved to, as you can see, since Marvel changed their shape of their corner box to begin with, they now went with a smaller diamond over the larger one. But there's a UPC with a bar through it, UPC with a line through it, and a UPC without a line through it. And they're just kind of, 1977 Whitman and 1979 Whitman. And here is a little interesting thing that has nothing to do with nothing, except I happened to notice it as I was looking through my Spider-Mans for the different UPCs and versions. These are all newsstand versions, but it's when the price rose from 35 cents to 40 cents. And as you can see, the first month that the price rose to 40 cents, they forgot to put the Curtis Code logo on. Whoops. They were probably just making up a new master paste-up logo that they because this is all a stat that they put down every month in the comic. So they're making a new master of this, and they forgot to put the Curtis Code CC on. So I just found that a little interesting tidbit of history. Not that it means anything one way or the other. It's just that whoever was pasting the cover up that month slipped up. Whoops. And finally we get into the era where a comic shop opened in my area, 1981. So this is same old newsstand version, November 1981. There's the new Curtis Code label. You can still see the same old CC in there, but it's got a world map around it. So they got a new Curtis Code label, same old number, 02457. UPC 11 for November. But then it looks like the next month I got my comic at the comic shop. Let's see, the comic shop opened near me in the summer of 1981 sometime. But since most comic shops didn't have a UPC scanner, they dropped the UPC out and put in a little Spider-Man head. Now keep in mind that these UPCs cost Marvel money. They buy them from, I guess there's some company that keeps track of universal price codes, so that Marvel buys this bar scan from someone, and then it keeps track of all their information. So since comic shops, most comic shops in 1981 did not have UPC scanners, they just dropped out the UPC and put in, a filler right there. And the UPC is used for tracking merchandising. So to put this UPC on this cover, even if the comic shop had a price scanner, would have messed up their tracking of distribution. So instead of instead of just leaving it there by default, they got rid of it, because otherwise it would mess up which comics were going where and being sold what. And if you notice, they kept the same diamond design, except I think that they put a month. They have a month in there now. If you remember, the old diamond design didn't have a month in it. Now it does, because the Whitman 3-packs didn't need a month. But the month is needed on the comic shop ones. So that it's they kept that design, dropped out the Curtis code, dropped out the Curtis code number, kept the month. So that's what's new in our comic shop edition. Just take a quick look to show you. In the Spider-Man 200, they did have a month. This is the one with the barcode, the bar through the UPC. So I'm not sure. I know I didn't get this Spider-Man 200 at a comic shop, and I remember them putting a barcode through the UPC on the Whitman ones. So I'm wondering if they put a month on the Whitman ones at this time. Anyway, a little aside. Let's quickly pop to another era. This is 1989. And now some of the artists were getting savvy and drawing their own pictures in the UPC box, so that Marvel didn't have to, if they didn't want to, they didn't have to paste down a generic Spider-Man head there. I'm pretty sure, I don't know for sure because I've never seen this original art, but I'm pretty sure if you looked on this original art, Todd McFarlane would have drawn that right in the UPC box. Just because some of the artists sometimes were like, well, if there's going to be a random piece of art in there, I may as well draw it myself. So that's why you can see different things drawn in different UPC boxes sometimes, because the artists took it upon themselves to draw it there, and whoever was doing the production on the cover just left it there. I was like, all right, there's no reason to paste over that with anything. But here is, from this era, there's the regular old UPC 4, which means April. Curtis code 02457, Amazing Spider-Man Curtis code number. And in this one, see, this was, I wonder what the UPC would say when it went twice monthly. If there's a UPC there, what would the number be? I don't know. Nowadays, the UPCs also have the variant numbers in there. Whatever this two-digit number up top here, where it says 4, is now a 4 or 6-digit number. But there's some late 80s UPC, no UPC, still. And just to show you what a modern UPC looks like, it now says Direct Edition. That's how you can tell that it's a, I think direct sales is what DC says. Direct sales, Direct Edition means it went to a comic shop. It was sometime in the 90s that most comic shops got UPC scanners, and therefore Marvel and DC sprung for the second UPC, one for Direct and one for Newsstand. I think the Newsstand edition is where it says Direct Edition there is blank. So that's the difference between. I don't even know if I have any news, because who buys comics at the Newsstand anymore? But if I remember correctly, it just says nothing there instead of Direct Edition. I wish I had an example to show you, but I don't think I do. And finally, I wanted to show you an example of the Curtis code number staying the same over the length of a series despite a title change in the indicia. This comic. This is the first Shang-Chi Master of Kung Fu, but the actual name of the comic is Special Marvel Edition number 15. And as you can see, the Curtis code number is 02449. Now, eventually they changed the title to Shang-Chi Master of Kung Fu. Here's the 100th issue. And the Curtis code number is 02449. So they didn't change the Curtis code number despite the actual title change on it. And here's an example. Here's 1981. There's the Newsstand and the Direct. You can see the Newsstand has Curtis code symbol with the world around it and the Curtis code, and the Direct edition doesn't have that. And if we go down here, there we go. There's that John Romita Spider-Man head in the UPC for the Comic Shop Direct edition. And just to give an example, the something like Giant Size Master of Kung Fu is actually a different comic. So it's got a different Curtis code number, 02927, despite there being no CC logo on there. Oh, this is I just realized this has no UPC at all. So this must be before the age of UPCs, but it's not before the age of Curtis code numbers, even though their logo isn't on there yet. Not sure what year this is, but it's pre-UPC, but not pre-Curtis code number. Hope that helps you guys out with a little bit of info on UPCs and Curtis code numbers to try and figure out what some of these comics from the 70s and 80s and 90s are.